Hello, my name is Chloe. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you Clodmas Day 12. This is my latest edition of books I've unhauled lately. If you are new to my channel, I don't do like an unhaul and keep all the books, but what I do is keep a list of all the books that have left my collection in the past couple months, and then when I have a long enough list, I bring you the video, and any that I'm holding up in front of me are ones that I still own, but I'm hoping to unhaul, and I'm very willing to pass on to you guys. So if you like the look of any of the 9 books I hold up in front of you out of the 24 books I'm unhauling, then please do let me know, and I'm sure we can come to some sort of arrangement. So this has been the past couple of months. I was a bit more brutal with getting rid of books I thought I would never read, which is always fun for me, and I got way more brutal in my ratings for some reason. The first book I have to talk about here is Fruit Basket Volume 1 by Natsuki Takaya. And I just knew I was never going to read this. I got this, it was a manga, and I got it because Cole likes the anime, and I just knew it was never going to happen. So I got rid of it before reading it, and for that reason I don't have much of an update on what it was about to give you because I don't know. Next up, I have The Perfect Sister by Zoe Miller. This was actually a gift from the lovely Emily, and I read the book, but sadly didn't really enjoy it. It was a thriller and I was not thrilled. So it was a really good look at family dynamics and from a contemporary side, but the thrilling element just wasn't really there, and it's disappointing, but there was no point me hanging on to this book in that case. What I did do is pass it on to somebody else in the building that I live in who likes reading, and they were interested, so I passed it on to them. So it's gone to a good home and was read and enjoyed, and hopefully somebody else will enjoy it now. I then have I Heart New York by Lindsay Kalk, and I read this a few months ago now, did enjoy it. I believe I gave it 3 stars, but it just didn't really wow me to the extent I wanted it to. This is about Angela, who is cheated on at her best friend's wedding, and she flees to New York to re-find herself and just escape. I did enjoy the concept. Parts of the story were really nice, but it was just a little naive in terms of how long you can flee to America and work and live without return flights from a practical sense. So there were a few issues I had in it from a practical point of view, and I know that's not really the point of a contemporary romance book, but I did like the story. Things just niggled at me. Next up, I have A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and I believe this one was actually passed on to Chelsea. I could be wrong. But this book I did read, and I don't know if I can say the word enjoy. It was a very strange book. I think I gave it quite a high rating. This is a look at a boy who is seeing a monster outside his window, and there are a lot of, I guess, metaphors of what that means and what the monster is and what the monster wants. Very twisty and hurt my brain a little, but I did enjoy it. But it's gone to a better home, clearly. Next up, I have an ARC, and that is If You Change Your Mind by Robbie Weber. This came out in May, and I read it a couple months ago now. This is about Harry, who wants to become a screenwriter, and to do so, he's going to need to avoid the distractions of all the pretty men in town. And it says, a perfect summer escape for fans of Becky Albertalli and Jenny Han, and I fully agree. I didn't absolutely love it. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, but I did enjoy it, and I'm not going to reread it, so I'd like for this to go to a better home, and as it's an ARC, I need you guys to trade with me or something like that. But if you are interested, I have this ARC. Next up, we have Feed by Myra Grant, which is actually one of my least favourite books of this year. I'm sorry, Mal, please don't stop watching. I really didn't enjoy this book. I read it for Chloe's Crime Scene Corner, and I believed it was a zombie kind of dystopian horror, but it didn't quite tick all the boxes I wanted it to. I'm not sure whether that's my fault for not understanding going in or how the book was marketed. So I don't want to go into this too much because I am putting up a worst books of the year list at the end of the year, but this did get a 1-star rating from me, and I didn't enjoy it, so it has gone. I don't know where it's gone. It's not in front of me. It must have gone somewhere because it's definitely left my collection. Next up, we have Learn My Lesson by Katie Roberts. Again, this was a lovely gift. I believe this was from Becca. It's book number 2 of the Desperate Measures series, and sadly I just didn't love it to the extent that I loved Desperate Measures. I knew I was never going to read it again, so I've hoped that I can provide somebody with it out in the wide world. I did really enjoy reading it, obviously, so thank you so much, Becca, for the gift, but I read it, I enjoyed it, wasn't going to read it again, so it has exited the collection. Next up, we have Past Mortems by Carla Valentine, which was one of the Chloe's Crime Scene Corner reads. This is a memoir, I guess, told by a mortuary technician, and it was really interesting. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it when I read it, but my friend Sydney, it just gave me her sort of vibe. She doesn't work with dead bodies, she works with very much alive bodies, but just like the description of what Carla was doing, I thought she would really enjoy, and the whole aesthetic of the book definitely meets her vibe. So I passed it on to her and hope she enjoys it. Next up, we have No Exit by Taylor Adams, which was one of my Patreon buddy reads. Sadly, I didn't like this. I think I actually gave it about 3 stars in the end because it was a fun experience, but this did not live up to the hype in my opinion. This is, I guess, a thriller of about Darby, who is traveling home for Christmas and gets stuck at a rest stop in a snowstorm. When she's at the rest stop, she sees a young girl in the back of a van, and she knows that somehow someone has brought this girl here, someone has kidnapped her, and she needs to free her and free them and avoid the kidnapper. It just wasn't quite as tense as I wanted it to be. There was one twist that was really obvious, but I did enjoy it. And yeah, this one definitely isn't a bad book by any stretch of the word, but it just didn't meet my expectations, so I'm not going to read it again. Next up, we have The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, which I did really enjoy, and I've given it to the mother-in-law for her to read because I feel like she'll enjoy it much more. This is a story about a woman who has been put in a mental institution after the murder of her husband, and she has been silent since. And a new therapist comes in to try and get to the bottom of what is going on, and I did really enjoy it. Whether I saw the twist coming or not, I think I did, and then I talked myself out of it, and then it ended up being true. So it was a little bit weird on whether I was surprised or not. I just was a bit confused. But the premise of the story I really enjoyed, and I do feel like she will love it, so I passed it over to her. Next up, we have The Book Club by CJ Cooper. Yes, CJ Cooper, which I tried to read. I read 100 pages of it when I did a 24-hour readathon, and it has been passed on to someone in my building who enjoys thrillers. I didn't enjoy it at all. I was so bored at 100 pages. That much was about a book club forming. It was about a woman moving to a small village from a big town and everyone talking about her before she got there. Genuinely not anything very exciting in my opinion, and hopefully the person in the building enjoys it more than I did. Next up, we'll have I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, which is one of the Chloe's Crime Scene Corner reads. I tried to read it. I really did. I got about 100 pages in, and I was annotating so that I could make a video on the Golden State Killer at some point in the new year. But I just don't care. I just don't care. This was May's book, and I DNF'd it last month officially because I just knew that I wasn't going to go back in and carry on reading. So it's going. This is written by Michelle as she was searching for the Golden State Killer, and in her journey to do so, she actually died and her memoir was finished off. I don't even know anything about the Golden State Killer right now to give you any facts about this, but I didn't like how this was written. I was just a bit bored and it did not hold my attention, so it's going. Next up, a book I did enjoy was Sweet Pea by CJ Scoose, but I actually gave this to a girl at work. She was reading The Silent Patient actually, and I read Sweet Pea. She was asking me about it, so when I finished it I gave it straight to her, told her to keep it. That book I think I gave 4.5 stars, but I just didn't think I was going to read it again, so I hope that Kieran enjoys it. And then next up, The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This was a perfectly good, sweet romance. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. And it's just another one I gave to the mother-in-law because I felt like she would enjoy it. It's a fun, romantic time, and I wasn't going to read it again. Next up, we have Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid, and I won't lie, I don't remember where that's gone. I've definitely unhauled it. Somebody has had it. But who that person is, I'm not sure. But this book I started reading in February and I finished it in September or October. It took me a long time and it's barely 300 pages. I didn't hate this book. It was just an okay contemporary read for me. It didn't really do anything for me. I think a lot of it went over my head. So I wasn't going to reread it. Got rid. Next up, a book that makes me very sad that I disliked was Beautiful Broken Things by Sarah Bernard. I gave this book 3 stars and I know I'm never going to read it again. This is about Caddy and Rosie, and a new girl joins their friendship group called Suzanne. And Suzanne is tempting the good girl to do bad things. It's all just like friendship dynamics with teenagers, and it just didn't do it for me, I'm afraid. So I met Sarah Bernard at Yalk. I absolutely love A Quiet Kind of Thunder. I love Goodbye Perfect. but this one just did nothing for me, I'm afraid, so it's gotta go. Next up we have Watching You by Lisa Jewell. I left this in America because I gave it 2 stars and there was no way I was bringing that damn book home. I took it around the world with me twice on trips away to the US. I finally read it this time. It took me days and I wish I wouldn't have bothered. I gave it 2 stars. I'm very scared because our book club read for December for Chloe's Crime Scene Corner is a Lisa Jewell, and I did not like this book at all. So I'm hoping it doesn't transfer to the family upstairs. But yes, this book, I can't even tell you what it was about. I blanked it from my memory. I didn't like it. Next up, we have The Taking of Annie Thorne by CJ Tudor. This one I actually finished off on the plane on the way home. I did say I was going to leave it there, but I was weirdly intrigued enough to carry on and read it. I wish I wouldn't have now because I didn't actually enjoy it all too much. I think I gave it 2 stars, but I was intrigued enough that I just had to know what happened at the end and I didn't want to just Google it, so I did finish it on the plane. This was... Oh, I found one of my business cards because I was going to leave it in the airport and it says, I hope you enjoy Chloe reads books. So maybe I'll find somewhere to drop this book. I was going to do it in the airport, but then I was like, is that a security risk? I don't know, and didn't want my name attached to it. But yeah, this one's going. Next up, I have The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I read this again in November, really enjoyed it, 5 stars, but I said that I just wanted to read it again to check out the ending because I couldn't remember it, and I've left it with the mother-in-law. I'm sure she'll love it. Next up, we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Sadly, I did not like that book. Well, I didn't hate it. I didn't avidly hate it. I think I gave it 3 stars. It was just okay for me. And then there was a pretty horrible comment about long distance relationships, and the way that that impacted the story I felt was very negative, and just kind of crapped on my experiences quite a lot. So I was personally bothered by it, and that definitely impacted my rating, so I was never going to read that one again, and it's had the boot. Next up, we have Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. I was fortunate enough to be sent an ARC of this book from Tor and Black Crow PR, but sadly I didn't like it. So officially I've given it no rating, but I'm a little bit conflicted. It's more that I just don't understand what people enjoy in it. So I just decided not to give it a rating because I'm obviously against the norm, and I just didn't like it. I was really bored. It has now gone to somebody in the US who was looking for the UK copy, and I really hope they enjoy having it because I just want that book to be treasured as it was obviously intended, and I couldn't do. Next up, we have The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. This was a lovely present from Leandra, and I'm sorry to see it go, but I have read it. I did enjoy it. But I also unhauled The Roommate, and I enjoyed this one more than The Roommate. This is about Naomi, who is an ex-sex worker, and she starts a working relationship with a rabbi, and that brings many complications into both of their lives, more so the rabbi's, and it just wasn't... Like, The Roommate was kind of just smut with a bit of story. This one was 80% story, so it just didn't really tick the same boxes for me. I am very grateful, Leandra, thank you so much for enabling me to read it, but it's just not really my thing now. I don't want to read it again, and I hope that somebody requests it and I can put this into their lives and they love it. I have 2 more to talk about here, both ones that I've read the last week that you've seen this. So the first one I have is Secrets by Jacqueline Wilson. I won't talk too much about this because it will spoil next week's vlog and the wrap up and stuff, but this is a middle grade about 2 girls, one who's from a wealthy family, one who is not, and it links a lot with Anne Frank. Weird link, but trust me, it's quite moving, but I'm never going to read it again. And finally, a book I was really hoping to love, but I wanted to launch it at a wall, is Montana Midwife by Cassie Miles. I thought that this was cowboy smut. It is not. It's actually a Harlequin intrigue, not a Harlequin romance. So this is a murder mystery story, a Western murder mystery story with a slight romance, and I say the word slight quite heavily. This was just not what I expected. It says suspense on the back, it says intrigue. I don't know why I thought it was smutty, it just wasn't. So I didn't really like this. But there we have it. There are the books that are leaving my collection to make space for Christmas, and I say that quite loosely because my TBR is as big as it's ever been. So, and continuously growing day by day. So those are the books I'm getting rid of. Please do let me know if you have any opinions that completely go against mine and you'd like to be angry with me. I would love to have a chat. But on that note, I have reading sprints to host in like an hour, so I need to go. Thank you very, very much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.